In the lore of Minecraft, it's assumed that the world that you spawn into has been lived in for quite some time. When you have structures like the villages, the pyramids, ancient cities, etc., it's pretty easy to see why. And the data pack that we're going to be talking about in today's video is going to crank that feeling of the world being lived in, but to 100, all while keeping the game as vanilla as possible and reinventing that thrill of exploration in your Minecraft world. The pack we'll be talking about today is called Dungeons and Taverns by 𝗦𝗧𝗦𝗕𝗦, and it's a very vanilla-friendly structured data pack that, while I'm not going to be going over every single structure in today's video, I will be going over quite a few to give you guys an idea of what this pack is about, while also keeping some details away from you guys if you would like to try this pack yourself, which the link will be in the description. So kicking things off with something a little bit simple, this is by far one of my favorite structures in this data pack, and that is of course the jungle village. Now, I'm pretty sure we've all at one point or another sort of wondered why we have jungle villagers in the game but no proper jungle village, and this data pack solves that problem. Now, with the introduction of things like mud blocks and bamboo wood and everything like that, I wouldn't be surprised if Mojang decided to actually give us an actual jungle village in an update in the future, but I do gotta say that they've done a fantastic job whenever it comes to adding this to the base game and making it feel as vanilla as possible. I absolutely love the way that these look, and it's probably one of my favorite structures in the data pack, despite being so simple. Now, keeping with the theme of villages, and I promise that this data pack isn't just villages, we have the swamp village. Now, unlike the jungle village, where this basically serves as an area to hold the proper villager type, this is actually a village taken over by witches, very similarly to how the witch huts will randomly spawn inside of your swamps. I don't really know if they know how to open doors, I'll be honest. I mean, maybe we can just... Wait, I think they're friendly. Are you actually friendly? Okay. Okay, that actually jump scared me because she was so chill for so long, and then just this loud noise came out of nowhere. Okay, anyways... yeah, this is the swamp village, and like I said, these will randomly generate with witches in them. Please leave me alone. I didn't mean to, I'm sorry. Anyways, yeah, swamp villages are pretty cool and can make for a pretty cool project in survival where you can basically liberate these from all of the witches on the inside and then later repopulate them with the proper villager type. I really do like how this keeps with the theme of just the dark and dreary nature of a swamp, and it also really ties in well with the fact that witch huts will randomly generate, and there's also a few other witch related structures that will now generate in the swamps, but I'll leave that up to you. Moving on to what is probably by far my favorite structure in the entire data pack is of course the taverns. Now, there are many different taverns that can generate, all in different types of biomes, looking completely different, made of different materials. They're pretty awesome, right? I mean, from a look standpoint, they're pretty cool. On the outside, you'll normally find some hay bales around so you can re-up on some food. You have these little carts out here, and every now and again, you'll also have some trading posts, which I'll put a picture on screen so you guys know I'm not lying. These are awesome. I love the fact that you can just find random villagers throughout your world, just like, hey man, you know, buy my stuff. And you know, aside from those little trading posts, of course, you have the main attraction, which is the tavern. Now, these taverns are very, very important because these serve as, well, not only what you imagine they would serve as, you know, an area to get your food, an area to sleep, yada yada, but they also serve as a quest giver. Now, you're probably asking yourself, what do you mean by a quest giver? Well, if we come to the top of the tavern and we find the chest at the very top right next to this window, and this is going to be for every single tavern that you find, there's going to be a chest on the second story, you can find a map. And these maps will lead you to very rare structures that are inside of this data pack. Whereas if you didn't find the map, you probably would never ever see one of these structures unless you were actively trying to fly as far as possible for hours on end with an elytra. Now, the one that we got right here is a desert ruin, so let's go ahead and see what the desert ruins look like. And after some time later, here we are. Now, these are one of the, I don't know, less exciting structures of the data pack, so I'm going to show you another one right after this. But you can kind of see the vibe that the whole tavern is going for, where this right here is a pretty rare structure. If I actually pull up the chat whenever I was locating this, it was actually 4,812 blocks away. And this structure, like I said, isn't really all that invigorating. It's nothing all that crazy, but there are a few that you can find, which I'll give you one as an example in just a bit, that are absolutely insane. So you'll absolutely want to keep an eye out for these taverns, because you can find some crazy things scattered throughout your world. Alright, so a very far ways away from where we just were, we are now at another tavern, so let's go ahead and come inside here, go upstairs, and see if we can find a different map that isn't the Desert Ruin, something a little bit more interesting. Here we have the Conduit Ruin map, as well as the Undead Crypt map, so I guess that is a pretty good segue onto the next area of the actual data pack. Let's go ahead and talk about some dungeons, because, you know, the data pack's called Dungeons and Taverns. So using a little bit of spectator mode action, you can see what we have going on here. And I gotta say, I absolutely love the way that they created the dungeons for this data pack. They even end up connecting to currently existing dungeons, kind of making them feel like basically an extent of what the current vanilla dungeon is. And this is kind of building off of that concept. There are plenty of different hallways, there's plenty of chests to loot, there's even extra spawners that you can find. But yeah, this is just one example of the dungeons that you can find in this data pack. I think these are really cool. This statue right here is currently holding a creeper, which is pretty fire, but this isn't actually the only dungeon that you can find inside of this data pack, because moving on to the next one, okay, don't mind me just kind of getting rid of some of the leaves here. Oh, well, I guess the lava pond is doing it for me. Anyways, the next type of dungeon I want to talk about is actually a dungeon that you can find above ground. And I don't know if you guys remember, but way back in the day, whenever strongholds were first talked about by Mojang, before they were even put into the game, they were actually debating on having these strongholds appear above ground, so that it would be easier for players to find them. And with this dungeon type, you can actually see that there is a creeper head that is put above ground to help the player find them. And I think that's really cool. Now, there should be some water at the end of this gigantic staircase, so hopefully I don't... Ow! Ow, okay. Oh my gosh, guys, whoa, look at that. Brand new dungeon, and it even, for some reason, has a tree growing on it. That's actually kind of fire. Oh man, pretend I'm in survival because I can't be trusted, so I'm gonna stick in creative mode. Anyways, this is the entrance into the Creeping Crypts, and as you'll see, the layout is quite different. Also, the creeper face is fantastic. You'll see that the layout is quite different from the other dungeons that we covered, and these are a little bit more unique in the sense that they're not entirely based off of this type of dungeon right here. And also, disclaimer, I don't think this is actually part of the generation. I think this is vanilla generation, unlike the other dungeon where these are directly connected. I think this was just happenstance, the fact that this even happened. But yeah, these dungeons are a little bit more unique, and there is, of course, some hidden loot that you can find around basically every corner. And yeah, I think these are really cool. I don't believe that they have a higher chance to spawn creepers, but the fact that there is a giant creeper head above ground that basically marks where you can find these, I think that's a really cool touch, and it's something I've always wanted Minecraft to have more of, is dungeons, and I like the way that this data pack handles that. While on the topic of dungeons, what do you guys think of my underground base? Well, it's actually not my underground base. It's actually a very rare structure that can now generate, called the Pillager Hideouts. Yes, these are absolutely massive. There are tons of different tunnels, and well, it would seem as though the pillagers built their hideout in the wrong place. Let's completely ignore what's going on that side of the hideout. There are tons of different tunnels and rooms and areas that are inside of these hideouts with tons of loot and different enemies that you can find, which make for an absolute insane time if you ever do come across one of these naturally. Now, these kind of make me think of, obviously, a dungeon because there's plenty of enemies, there's plenty of loot, but they also make me think of the pillager version of a stronghold. build. I absolutely love this structure so much, and these are really awesome. And very soon, probably within the next week, I do plan on starting a series in survival, probably hardcore, where I do intend to use this data pack while playing through my world for the very first time. I've never used this data pack in survival myself, but just showcasing to you guys all the structure possibilities, well, not even all of them, only scratching the surface, it really makes me want to play through and actually find some of this stuff on my own in survival, and I'm probably going to end up doing that. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, definitely feel free to do so if you would like to see a series using this data pack. But anyways, that's probably going to do it for the dungeons. Let's go ahead and move on to some more pillager related stuff. Moving on from that absolute underground mega base, we have a little bit more humble beginnings for the pillagers. And here we have just a regular pillager camp. Now these can come with allays, and I think they also can come with iron golems as well. But of course they do have these villagers that are kept as... Okay, maybe I should have kept them in there. Maybe there's a bet. You know what? Here, you can't die alone, bro. We'll just go ahead and get him out too. But yeah, these are a little bit more humble beginnings for the pillagers. This isn't exactly a mansion, but it's also not just a regular outpost. It's just a tiny little camp that you can find, and you'll probably find a few of these scattered throughout your world. Moving on from humble beginnings, we have what is probably the closest you're going to get to an actual pillager village, and that is the Badlands mining outpost. As you can see, we have a few tents around here, we have a few different houses, we have the main attraction right here, and by the way, you can find maps to these inside of the taverns because this is a very rare spawn. But yeah, we also have some carts over there, another camp, we even have a cart with TNT, and these builds are absolutely awesome to come by because not only will you be able to tackle them from the inside out and get tons of loot, but they are very true to their name. And if you decide to go down, you'll actually end up finding a lot of man-made, or I should say pillager-made tunnels of them mining and collecting a bunch of different gear and loot throughout their mining expeditions. So it's basically like a pillager village mixed with a pillager abandoned mine shaft with tons of different amounts of loot that you can collect. And I think these are just fantastic. They're really cool. They're really rare. And it definitely incentivizes you to go out and look for those taverns, because getting a map to one of these could mean that you're basically going to walk away with a full inventory and then some. Now, the last pillager related thing I want to show you guys before we move on over to the nether side of things is the pillager manor. Yes, this is not a mansion, this is a manor, and it's essentially just a mansion that has been upgraded times 10. Now, I'm not going to go inside of here, I'm not going to show you what's inside, because personally, I don't even know what's inside. All I know is that there's probably some wicked things on the inside that I don't want to spoil myself on, and I don't want to spoil you guys on. But this build is absolutely fantastic. Honestly, in my opinion, I feel like this looks more vanilla than the actual regular woodland mansions that we have in the base version of Minecraft. I think this definitely looks a lot better than the woodland mansion does. And yeah, it is just fantastic. And I know for a fact there is an underground portion to this building. Obviously you have a lot of stuff above ground as well. This little watchtower here, a very cool structure, and this is one of the biggest things that you can find in this data pack, and I'm sure that there are some wild adventures to be had in here. Alright, so to kick off the nether portion of the video, let's start with something a little big. So have you ever wondered what it would be like if the piglins essentially got their own version of a fortress, or at least their own version of a fortress that isn't traditionally one big square, kind of like the bastions? Well, that is what this would be, and I believe this is called the Piglin Outstation. It's basically like a gigantic camp that the piglins have created, but it is out in the open with a, I guess you would say, a keep as the central structure, and these look so fantastic. I'm gonna be honest, in survival, I don't know if the piglins would get mad at you if you came here. I doubt they would. Maybe they would if there was some brutes. Maybe if you get a little too close to the brutes, they may not like you. But this structure is amazing. It's basically like a less broken down bastion, and something that the piglins have I don't know, I guess kept up with a little bit better. I mean, as you can see, there's a little bit of furniture in here. I mean, the piglins are doing pretty good for themselves if they're creating furniture. So, yeah, I would say that this structure is pretty damn cool. Coming across one of these would be absolutely fantastic in survival, but as you guys can see, whenever I typed in to actually locate it, it was 2,300 blocks away, and doing that in the nether without an elytra or without random luck, it would take a while to come across one of these, but they would definitely seem worth it if you did. Moving on to our next big location, and what is personally my favorite part of this data pack in the nether, we have the nether port. And you might notice that I turned off my shaders, and that is because I don't want you guys getting blinded by how bright the lava can be. But the nether port basically serves as a means to kind of fill in the gaps between, well, nothing going on in the traditional, you know, lava lakes in the nether, and kind of gives a little bit of a structure to break up that monotony. And I absolutely love these things. They are connected via these long bridges. You have these little mini wooden outposts connected to this big nether looking castle that also utilizes some of the nether wart bricks, which I think is pretty nice. And if I'm not mistaken, these also should have spawners in them. Yes, they do. These have spawners just like your traditional nether fortresses. So I think these are really cool. You also have a collectible banner that you can find, and this is also a pretty common theme through some of the structures in this data pack. You will be able to get some collectible banners similar to the pillager banners. So if you ever want to get these, add them to your collection, little trophy room or something, then you will be able to do that to show that you conquered one of these structures. Now, I did see a little structure in the background, so I'm going to go ahead and move on over here so I can show you guys. This is a camp. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this should be just a regular piglin camp. These are actually scattered throughout the nether. There are piglin camps and there are also skeleton camps, and this one seems to just be a regular piglin camp. And it's very similar to the pillager camps that we saw, where these just kind of go to show that the world is a bit lived in and that these mobs aren't just tethered to these gigantic structures. Sometimes they can be out in the wild. And for the final structure for the nether side of things, which keep in mind, I'm not showing everything in this video to avoid spoilers, we have the nether keep. And this is very similar to the pillager manor that we saw in the overworld, whereas this is basically just an upgraded version of an existing structure. Now, this doesn't replace the previous structure. This does not replace nether fortresses, but think of it as an upgraded version of one, and you'll definitely be able to tell because of the blackstone. These are absolutely massive in my experience, and we're gonna go ahead and move on over to the inside so I can kind of show you. There are quite a lot of different hallways in here. There are piglin prisoners and a lot of loot to be had. So plenty of adventures can be found inside of these nether keeps, and you'll definitely need to stay careful because there are a lot of mobs that spawn in them. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for me today. I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and as I discussed a few different times, we definitely did not go over all of the structures in this pack, which I can go ahead and pull up for you guys really quick if you are curious to see just how much stuff this pack does have to offer. Again, the download link will be in the description, and after making this video and showcasing this pack to you all, I don't think I've ever been more inspired to try out a new hardcore world than with this data pack present at the beginning. So if that sounds like a series that you guys would be interested in watching, then make sure to hit that subscribe button. But yeah, hope you guys did enjoy today's video, and I will see you all next time.